Hello, my name is Reg Lewis, and I welcome you to my crawl space lab, where I am simply trying to introduce you to those elements that are part of the crawl space, that are a part of the attention wars, that are part of the missing curriculum. And it's going to come in a way that is very disjointed, I warn you now, because it's all about extracting those moments that just make sense to you. Not about anything else. There will not ever be a linear guide. There will never be a linear explanation. There will never ever be a linear framework that I can share with you in a way that will be comprehensive, that will be clear. It's going to be madness, ladies and gentlemen, especially since it's about 90 degrees back here, but that's neither here nor there. So I welcome you again to this lab, to this place that I've simply had the opportunity to lay out my life's work so I can simply share what it means to be in the crawl space and why I believe it is the most important solution that you can have for surviving this world. You will hear the phrase gaps in the trap, how to find gaps in the trap using rails. I look to really explain that to you. Look. See, right here, relationship awareness, intimacy loops. And even though I have to use spectacle to try to draw your attention to intimacy, I think it's a worthwhile venture because I see so many people struggling day to day just to find peace, to draw peace into their lives. That's why the crawl space means finding a way between these different structures to find little landing places or spaces where you can simply be yourself. You don't have to do anything special. See, in the world of education, we always have the do now. But where is the be now? Part of the missing curriculum that I look to introduce you to. Because it's right here, the present moment, that is going to be the location of the crawl space. See, all too often, people get drawn into the past is here and the future's on this side. So we have to try to find a way to be more present in our lives. It is so difficult to be in the present moment. So we got our past, we got our future. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, whether that's minutes, days, weeks, seconds, years. Same thing on this side. We got seconds, minutes, days, weeks, years, whatever the case may be. The bottom line, when we're in our mind and we really just can't stay in that present perfect place, what do? We go hopscotch marathoning from 5 minutes ago, 5 days from now, 10 years ago. Where should I be in 10 years from now? 15 seconds ago, 25 years from now, 5 days, and we just kind of go on this hopscotch marathon. We're all over the place, but we're never in the present moment. That's why when we say, where did the time go? Time isn't the problem, the present is the problem, because we keep going to these different locations in time. So, once we really get into this breakdown, we will really understand why the shh is critical to creating enough stillness that would allow us to enter the present moment without being preoccupied with what has to go on in the future and what happened to us in the past. And it will be my pleasure to introduce you to all facets, all elements of the crawl space. So again, thank you very much for joining me in this lab. We have so much to cover. Let's get started. So sitting on this old Victrola is an Ornette Coleman album called Sadness. Beautiful color, but of course, we'll be moving on with the shh in the background. First, we're going to move over to this little collage area where I've cut out some of my favorite musicians, these influential voices, in jazz, the history of jazz. I hope you recognize some of the faces. If you do not, you have plenty of homework to do. Moving down on this table here, I just have a lot of artistic fragments. At times just taking little pieces of paper, scraps of paper, and adding some decoration, some line, some stillness, some space. That's actually a view from out of this window in my living room, 129th Street. You can probably see over here on the side the Metro North, right? That's the tracks for the Metro North. And there's also a hotel across the street. But yeah, just a little visual. I tried to add my graffiti composition to it. Now here's some more musicians, many of which got me through my 20s, right? That's Bud Powell there. He is still one of my favorite pianists, and he's being connected to Thelonious Monk, and you hear the school bells in the background. There we have Jimmy Garrison, but up above him, let us continue. Yeah, so Charles Mingus was, of course, very influential to me. And this is actually a piece I did on the stove that I wanted to just kind of point out. The cookers, the idea is that musicians sort of were cooking things up, relatively common. And if you had your cookers, you also had your dancers. A few interpretations of mine, just kind of using some line. We're now coming upon a section that features a lot of afros. I was born in 1970, so the 70s, the afro was, of course, everywhere. Such a beautiful sight. No violent door there. But of course, this piece here, actually, I'm going to wait because I'm going to actually explain this a little better. Piece called Testing, Testing, 1, 2, 3. Your assessment brand sickens me. Results in alarming headaches. Makes me a perfect candidate for your medications. That's what I guessed. Just a piece that I did actually for an exhibit in Brooklyn. But again, I will get into those details momentarily. Just take a look. Give me another second, a little patience, and here we go. And I might add that this piece here was actually a part of an exhibit in Brooklyn at the Skylight Gallery by an event curated by, rest in peace, Mr. Danny Simmons, right? Called Power, Protest, and Resistance, the Art of Revolution. And there I go right here. This was my contribution to that event. And the idea that this was what I called self-protest. I shall read just briefly what this was all about. Self-protest, resisting the institutional distortion of the selfie. Appropriate academic assessment, AKA standardized testing versus standardized expressing. Whether it is the result of institutional design, insensitivity, or ignorance, standardized testing does not provide an accurate measure of our mental abilities. Furthermore, they do not, cannot, and will never be able to reflect the depth of our amazing gifts, our voices, our creative energies. Yet as a teacher in the New York City Department of Education, I encounter countless students in all sorts of minor to major meltdowns with the belief that their value in identity in part, as human beings, has been reduced to the results of these high stakes examinations. I simply imagine a scene in which a classroom of students responded to the academic pressure with creative mutiny and rebellion by using the scantrons as canvases during an actual examination, hence my visual demonstration. In my vision, the students successfully participate in the protest of that limited one-dimensional assessment tool by producing graphic results that render them protest, for the appropriated document would allow them an appropriate expression, portrait of themselves. In other words, in order to balance out the pressure and distortion created by the culture of standardized testing, there needs to be a movement towards standardized expression, standard free. So there you have it. Once again, Power, Protest, and Resistance, The Art of Revolution, as curated by Daniel Simmons. Rest in peace. It's funny how the Simmons family came up in Queens, and right there you're looking at my grandparents who lived in Queens while I was alive. My grandmother actually is from Pittsburgh, and my grandfather was from Virginia. And the odd thing is her name is Virginia. So, you know, a lot of connections there. And if any family members know otherwise, please check me, because that's such a poetic way for them to be connected. So I kind of like that version. So, but there anyway, of course, they both passed a while back, but image of them stayed with me, and I wanted to keep them together through portrait. Next, we have all these other smaller fragments, just these different portraits that I've created. A lot of this is just a lot of the line-heavy pieces that I've created without color. Color will be coming shortly. It's actually Bob Marley there. That's Ron Carter, for those who know him. There's one of my charcoal drawing of Eric Dolphy. He's moving around. Here is a light bulb-headed self-portrait I did while I was at City College. Looking like I have a lot of ideas in that head. Okay, also, these charts were a part of my show, The Attention Wars, and they are, you can say, the major principles and foundation of the crawl space. Here we got gaps in the traps, using rails, and you see the shh in the middle, past, future. Of course, there will be extended workshops and tutorials about that, but back to the art. Okay, little circles there. I went through this geometric phase. Also just letting the line speak for itself. As we go to the lower level, I like the idea of levels, dimensions, gears, layers. A little black sun going on right there. See a lot of distorted faces, you know, that's trying to work through the idea of sometimes feeling like you're living in a distorted world. But I do not wish to wax poetic. I just want the images to speak for themselves. I always like the idea of I am a juggler. I love to juggle, and that's one of those arts that must be learned. It's like a sad clown there, a little, I'd call it a self-portrait of sorts. Some more afros, as you can see. See what we have at the bottom? Oh, look. A little self-portrait there of me as a little child, just kind of sitting outside. There's roaring colors above my head. That there is Sidney Poitier with an afro. If you could recognize his features, and a little self-portrait action here, right? And beneath the mask is what? A different level of darkness, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even gonna shh. I'm learning to take my own advice. Shh. But yes, that is me. Fragments, fragmented. Just trying to put it all together. This part is very important because this was my children's book called The Legend of the Upside Down Rainbow with Sadie and Tatum. And that there is Tatum, which is really me, and Sadie, which is my sister. And Sadie Tatum was the name of my grandmother on my mother's side. And again, I hope to use them to help me break down the crawl space and to explore the crawl space and to teach lessons about why it's important to silence the mind. But in this, it was all about teaching people how to smile. And I had this concept called the smile shop, right? The idea that when you come in, you have to leave with a smile. But either way, this is such a wonderful, cute little story that, we'll see how it will manifest. The imagery is there. And here are the actual people it's based on. Here is an image of my sister and I when we were children. And there goes Sadie Tatum. There goes Sadie. As we actually called her Mud. And that was our nickname. And Mud came from when my sister tried to say the word mother when she was a little baby. And Mud was the best thing that came out. And there's an image with me, my sister, and Mud, and my mother. And actually, if you take a look back at that little fish that I have, we call the fish Mud. But anyway, I got to try to keep up. This is my old graffiti book when I used to do my tags back in the 80s. So this is when I was about 14, 15, 84, 85. And the fat laces, characters, the trains with the bending buildings. Yeah, there's the 1984 right there. You could see a lot of times signed 1985, Reg. Here's a piece called Nose, my prominent feature that caused me a lot of insecurity as a youth. And my nickname Nut, as in Reg Nut. I do need to change my email. That still reflects that name. But that was that. Even decorated some cereal boxes. And here's a little section with my best friends from childhood, Kwame and Mayo. Kwame made that Reg Nut piece from a Yankee baseball bat. Here we have all kinds of anatomy, other characters. That's an image of my mentor, Nathan George, all right there. Taught me everything valuable about drama, theater. There goes a copy of my book, The Attention Wars, How Reality Crosses the Mind, ... introducing the crawl space. Of course, myself, Mr. Shh. Book of Poetry, the Crawl Space Guidebook. As you see, I have fragments everywhere. Reminds me of that self-portrait, just trying to put things together. There goes the Shh shirt for sale on Amazon. Right? The urgency that I'm trying to approach this. You just saw a little bit of me filming this, right? Later, you'll see these things I call playgrounds, like these dense compositions with all of these fragments and bits and pieces and webs, and they almost look like stained glass windows if you see them in person, up close. A wonderful student named Shantasia Searchwell created this for me. I would read it for you, but my eyes fail me, even with these glasses on, these readers. So I'm sorry that I cannot help you with that, but again, very touching to know that people appreciate what you do. Dr. Lawyer, right? You need to listen to your heart, but you also need to quiet that courtroom in the head. Of course, those are lessons that are a part of the crawl space. And again, once again, Nathan George. So, yeah, listening to your heart. We always do it symbolically, but we ought to do it literally. It's our own hearts, right? You should own one. Down here, we have a portrait of Herbie Hancock. It started out like that, but sometimes I just get overactive, so I just had to fill the space. And, this style here, where I was just, again, using all of these colors, this burst of energy, these fragments, this electricity that I'm always trying to discover or talk about in the work. And here we go. Sadie and Tatum, I actually created little standing figures. So there you go. And there goes again mud in the jar. And this is getting trapped in the jar, right? Judgment, attachment, resistance. Those three principles, or those three pieces, like, create such havoc in our lives, and you have to get out of the jar. And that's what gaps and the traps are all about. So looking forward to getting into that lesson. A little sculpture with a aluminum foil. And when we get trapped in those jars, we will be very unhappy, as you can see with some of those characters from the Upside Down Rainbow. Mr. Beeman, Windy Wendy, Big Bang, he's always starting something. Judy and Jody, the judgmental twins we just saw. And just other bits. You see the crabs there, that's my Cancerian sign, my signature, right, as a crab, and some other little cute penguins in the back. I should really allow the images to speak for themselves. I'm here trying to get the play-by-play. I do love me some pigeons, though. Of course, I actually used that pigeon to help me demonstrate the hopscotch marathon, one of the traps of time that we get caught up in. But let us make a transition back to some art. Not my own right now, but actually the work of Rashid Johnson and the amazing, amazing exhibit he had at the Guggenheim, a poem for deep thinkers, a poem actually written by Amiri Baraka. I met Naomi Beckwith and Rashid Johnson at that event. It was such an amazing time, and the space, the way it was filled, just so inspirational, so organic. You could see his signature pieces right here, or his signature emblem and in his style that those of you who know his work will readily recognize. And let's see what happened when I had that little encounter with them. So as I said, I had the enormous opportunity to meet these two giants of the art world, Naomi Beckwith and Rashid Johnson. And in that exchange, I had the opportunity to simply ask a question.
Yeah. Another question in this aisle?
Yes, my question is this. You have filled the space of the Guggenheim with such energy. Sometimes being still, I feel like I can really sense everything. But I'm also wondering, at one point you have a piece up and you mentioned Alice Coltrane, P-Funk, and Sun Ra all together. When you work, is there any music that you really love to listen to, or do you prefer to work in silence?
No, I'm a music guy.
I'm always listening to music, but I'll do different things. It's really interesting. Depends on what I'm making. If it's something new, I have to listen to music. If it's something I know how to kind of make and I'm into the kind of meditative state of making it, I can listen to a book. And when I'm bored and I know I should stop making something, I talk to my friends on the phone. And so, like, it's how I know a body of work is over. Is that, I'll get a call and I'll be making something and I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'll see you at dinner. And I'm like, oh, I should stop this shit. I was like, I can't. I'm like now at a stage in this body of work where I'm no longer paying the level of attention I need to. But to your point, music is for me the thing I'm most jealous of. And musicians are the people I'm most jealous of. They're the ones who I say, God, you can like grab people by the soul. You ever listen to, John Coltrane, Love Supreme, and just think to yourself, I could cry, and then even just pivot and listen to Gershwin, Rhapsody in Blue. But still, like, he does do really interesting depictions in New York. I'm just going to leave that there.
That takes place.
So, when he said that line about being jealous of musicians, after they got off the stage, I had the great opportunity to stand with the man just for a minute so I can share with him this piece right here. I am not a musician. That pronouncement causes me great pain. The idea of standing on stage with instrument, making time bend with sounds that are held together by the spines and lungs and fingers of a living ensemble strikes me as the highest order of communication, of interaction, of expression available to the species. I am often found saying that I would willingly trade all of my talents I possess for the privilege to occupy the stage for merely one session, one concert, one song even, in which I was given a master improviser's ability to speak alongside of other masters. It is my equivalent to the human desire to fly. And he said, man, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. I don't even remember if I read the second part, which goes like this. Enter this portrait collection. Since I will not be granted that magical trade of gifts, I turn to those trades which I have cultivated, and I seek to replicate the magic I so admire and respect in music, the use of line and space. In this way, I play ink. I play ink, hoping to create lines and spaces which approach those sounds. Lines and spaces which bend the imagination, the spirit. Actually, I play ink has become my line of choice. Whenever I am asked if I am a musician, trust me when I say it reduces the pain. Furthermore, I am allowed to feel a certain elevation when a creation all falls together. Only my creative triumphs come in the privacy of a lab instead of on stage in front of an audience. With that said, I guess I am sort of a musician, an ink instrumentalist. Okay, so at this time, I would simply like to reflect on this idea of me being an ink instrumentalist with this little short film I made several years ago. So let us just take a listen. Some people are born with instruments attached to their bodies. Musical instruments literally attached to or in place of limbs. I was not one of those so fortunately blessed, and although I have come with other congenital instrumentation, I envy those for whom music is automatic, constant, permanent. The type of musician I am most fond of is the jazz musician. The improvisation, the grace, the horizontal and vertical funk, they all contribute to my love and jealousy of their gift. I try my best to approach their artistry with my hand as paintbrush and pen and pencil and Prismacolor. I often choose those very musicians for my portraits, which imitate their presentations, their presence, their fleeting poems. I am much safer than the musicians I admire most, so I have not forced the world to see what I hear. I did try once, but I did not persist. There you have it. So you get the idea. Let us continue. So although I play ink, I must feature my John Coltrane quartet. So this section here represents musicians I have in mind. So first, as said, here we go. We got John here, right? The John Coltrane. Of course, playing alongside of him, Eric Dolphy. Holding down the bass with him, Mr. Jimmy Garrison. Rock together at the Village Vanguard. All right, here we got Mr. McCoy Tyner. Finally, my Elvin Jones. Let us continue. So what we have here, we have the stages of how the John Coltrane piece, the first one, kind of came into fruition with the different colors, right? We're back to the Bud Powell. The original Bud Powell, I think you saw some of the transparencies I made out of them before. But I like the idea of doing variations, just like when they would record music, create multiple takes, right? And then you can get the box set of the CDs where they would have the multiple takes all in one. So, same concept applies. Just walking through some other sketches. Juggling, of course, very, very key to my own health, sanity, and survival. Those watercolor pieces that I actually created a few years ago, and here's some more collage just with pieces of construction paper. And for those who know this wonderful love-hate relationship I have with technology, there it went. Okay, some Albert Ayler, actually born on July 13th, one of my favorite musicians. His lyricism is just crazy if you do not know. Here's the flyer from my one-man show that I created in March of 2026, The Attention Wars. And there is somewhat of my logo, the past, present, and future, all on that same thin line. I have these traffic lights here. I do plan on conducting these massive games of red light, green light, not like the Squid Game, but a version that I would say promotes stillness, silence, and space. Of course, I don't want to give away too much because it is an idea worthy of theft. But I'm saying that in jest, of course. But I love the idea of this vertical structure that creates this horizontal movement when it comes to our roadways. Another version on a shirt. That's actually a Wayne Shorter piece that I did. I feel like I still need to work on it, so that's why it's kind of in the corner. You know, it's like a little punishment. You know, been ostracized from the others. You know, shh. You gotta practice in steps. Of course, when I talk about the courtroom in the head, that whole section, got a video or two about that. There goes those wonderful school bells. But we'll talk about the idea of the shh and how important it is to silence this courtroom in the head, and how we have so many voices competing for our attention, and sometimes just driving us out of our minds and crazy, but you have to combat it with the shh. So those lessons will be in abundance, right? Just visuals, just playing with visuals. What we're going to do now is go on a more formal crawl space crawl tour of some of my pieces that I've created over the years. Again, 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the making. That's Lorraine Hansberry. And another Bud Powell piece. Yeah, you just saw Miles Davis. And the other two pieces at the bottom, well, there's a Coltrane in the middle, right beneath Miles Davis. Two Albert Ehlers that you can't see. That's supposed to be, it looks like Kyrie Irving, but also it started out off as Che Guevara, as the famous photo goes, but we'll talk about that. But again, here goes Coltrane. You see the face right in the middle? That's Albert Ehler. Of course, he passed away by drowning. Some people believe there could have been foul play. You're right there. But suicide is also just considered the way he unalived himself. And that's also another piece. This is also Albert Ehler. You can see him there, right? July 13. We share that birthday. And here go my playgrounds. And seeing them through video does not do them justice. I shall say myself, I believe these can be framed and actually they are museum gallery worthy, I believe. And that will be part of my venture, or rather my journey to try to make that happen, right? You can see the obvious New York City graffiti influence, growing up in New York City and taking that 6 train. Again, there goes Eric Dolphy, and actually another Eric Dolphy. I mean, his work just has such an intimacy. And it's a movable piece, You can find career on other spaces, right? And almost like, it's like a sculpture, sort of a piece that I have in the background. But again, I would even love to do something with some animation and some recording, but that will come in due time, ladies and gentlemen, in due time. A lot of these pieces serve as continuations of other pieces. It's this energy. That actually became the cover of The Attention Wars, one that I had available on Amazon. Some more of my musicians that just passed to B.B. King. Yeah, there he goes again at the bottom, underneath those musicians. And we're just about at the close, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me. As those who know me, I'm very, very, very passionate about just creating some simple forms to add to the world, some beauty, some joy, and doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So with that being said, again, I want to thank you for joining me. There will be, of course, plenty of tutorials, more work, and I hope to see you again here in the crawl space. So again, thank you very much for joining me in this lab. Take care and farewell.